But veganism is the best way you can possibly help animals in everything you do, and I think that's what we have to stay on message and really promote that, and don't let people wander off into the area of humane nonsense.
Asher, since you're a message guy, and then Amy, of course, I see you wanting to lift your mic, but Asher, since your work in content creation, can you speak to that a little bit as well?
Yeah, just on the topic of what the movement needs, and I know this is an animal rights panel, and I think the goal of everybody is to save as many animals as we can, but what I think the movement needs is more intersectionality. I think if you care about animals, you go vegan, but if you care about the planet, you go vegan. If you care about social justice and women's rights and food shortages, if you care about any of these things,
Healthcare.
if you care about healthcare, if you care about
Your wallet.
your health, your performance, if you want to run
expensive to be
faster, stop eating animal products. And I think we have this amazing vegan movement, and there's an amazing environmental movement and an amazing social justice movement. And the next step really is to help everybody understand that it's the same thing, that no matter what you care about, you shouldn't be eating these products, and you shouldn't be supporting this system.
We need plant-based foods lobbyists. We need to get into the legislation. We need to turn the whole power frame completely on its head. Right now we have around 20 billion tax dollars a year that go to the agriculture industry. That needs to change. So we need to start taking some of this power, and the power we have comes from the truth behind food, not only what nutrition exists in food, but also the way food is farmed or harvested, as Animal Ag likes to say. So we need plant-based lobbyists. I know a woman named Connie Spence who's working really, really hard, targeting legislation, targeting representatives, exposing the representatives that take money from the animal ag industry, so we vote those people out. And then the other thing that comes to mind for me is we need humane education programs in schools, which can be very hard to do because animal ag has such a tight relationship with schools, supplying them with meat and dairy still being on the Choose My Plate graphic. The USDA being responsible for telling us what to eat to be healthy is just insanity. So I see a lot of opportunity in legislation, and it would start with having a plant-based foods lobby group.
I think the Plant-Based Food Association does some of that and is starting out. So shout out to Upton's Naturals, Miyoko, Tofurkey. They're all in the Plant-Based Foods Association. I would add to that I would like to turn this message around. I would like to see corporations not the enemy, but corporations get behind. I want them to make money. If they're not making money, it's just we're going to have to fight them. I want them to make money. There's a lot of money to be made on plant-based food options and non-dairy milks and things. So I would like to see more and more companies, or us working with companies and not fighting them.
Sure. Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what's been said already, but I think there's this concept of just normalcy, really. We want, a vegan diet, we want, animal rights and stuff, we want that to be the norm, right? So that comes with a lot of different things. One is just like having more and more people be aware of it, more and more people being vegan, asking for these products, and then, having these products in restaurants and on store shelves and stuff like that. I know for me personally, I just went to a friend's wedding, and the mother of the bride, I told her I was vegan. She looked me straight in the eyes and she said, "You're not special." But it was a weird thing to say, but what she meant was that one of her daughters had actually been vegan for a few years, so that it's like an up and coming movement that's getting more and more people, and I think that's really important for us. I think people are very much influenced by the people they're around, by their situations. So it's our job then to get veganism into as many places as possible, into as many people as possible, and then from there it's like a snowball effect, and then it becomes normal for everyone.
And related to that, people want to be like people who are happy and enjoying themselves. And so the more positive we can be as role models when we are the ones eating the vegan food, for example, the more people will be able to say, oh wow, this person is the kind of person who's like me and also who's a person I would like to be like. They're a happy person, they're a kind person, and it really doesn't seem that hard to be eating these vegan options and so on. And so the more we can be happy, optimistic, and let people come around on their own time sometimes. A lot of us struggle with friends and family members who don't yet understand the strength, for example, of the case for veganism, or very stuck in their habits. And leading by example and showing how easy it is and how joyous it is and delicious to eat vegan food, it's remarkable. I've seen and heard from people often who say that by doing that, by not, for example, being argumentative with their friends and family members and so forth, but just answering their questions and leading by example, how after a year, 2 years, 5 years, these people have made the change. And that positivity is picking up as an important part of the movement, I think, and will continue to make a very big difference in terms of the cultural shift to plant-based eating.
Can any of you talk to the intentional negative messaging because veganism is catching on so much, and because so many people, you say you're vegan, oh that's nothing special, oh my daughter's vegan, my friend's vegan, so the other day I was at a dinner and they were saying initially when she was vegan 20 years ago, everybody was making fun of her. She went to a dinner party, 50% of the people were vegan. So it's incredible how many people are hopping on board and maybe just not using their voice like we'd all like to see. Maybe just not telling the world that they're out there and they're vegan. But it's big business now, and there's some negative messaging being put out there. How can we counteract that?
What's an example of the negative messaging?
Well, I'm just feeling that, so for example, I have a radio show on WGN Radio in Chicago. I'm a rotating host on air live on a station that is just, average, middle of the road kind of demographic. And, I'll get comments after the show, vitriolic comments of people who obviously feel afraid that their world is going to change. And I think we'll talk about predictions in a minute, but I think the world is going to change. And what do you recommend if you ever have people who come up and say like, oh, veganism jerks, or you're angry, or how do you deal with negativism coming at you?
I think one of the most important things is to recognize that, first of all, many people have negative reactions because they know that a habit that they have is problematic. And so a lot of times the people who are the least likely to change are the people who don't really seem to care. The people who have sort of a vitriolic reaction often are the people on the cusp of changing. And by recognizing that, and recognizing that oftentimes people are struggling with the fact that their eating habits have been ingrained for their entire lives, generally for decades. And it's not that easy to suddenly make a change in something that you thought of as just a normal thing that everyone around you does and that you're just in the habit of doing. So by being patient with those people and recognizing where they're coming from and leading by example and remaining positive, and not making them, to the extent possible, feel like you're judging them at a personal level, but just that you have been persuaded by these arguments and are concerned about the treatment of animals. That, over time, with a remarkable number of people, is what changes them.
So I'll have to say a shout out to social media, because I think social media has done such a great job of people being able to not be confrontational and just simply say, look at what I'm eating today and how fun and how happy and how much I like it, hashtag super yummy or whatever. And that's just a really great way. I think social media has helped our movement a lot to just let people know how many options there are. So I rarely get the question anymore, what do you eat? I eat gobs of stuff all the time, obviously. So I think social media has been great in changing things and an avenue for us all to be very happy. Asher.
Yeah, and if I can just add in on that, I hope everybody thinks this way, but Every single time you post a picture of something you eat and you say, this is a vegan meal, you're an activist.
Completely.
Every time somebody you follow posts something and you like it so that Instagram or Facebook pushes it higher in the algorithm so more people can see it, you're an activist. Those small acts of activism collectively are how we change the world. And so it's easy to write off social media as something silly, but really it's the greatest tool our movement has ever had. And it's every single person out here, every single day, that is really pushing forward the change in the world.
I would like to add that with dealing with the negativity, the key there, I think, is to find common ground with people. And the great and also terrible thing about veganism is that it solves so many problems because animal ag is causing most of these problems. And so there's something there that you can get on board with somebody. You can find out what they care about. Do they care about starving children? Do they care about undocumented oppressed workers? Do they care about the environment? Do they care about the oceans, the sharks? There's so many problems caused by animal ag that are solved by going vegan that there's something that you can find to be on common ground with somebody, but you have to go searching for it, which means you have to ask them questions. So they're coming at you in this negative way, and so I would say take that as an opportunity to ask them what they care about, and be genuine and be curious and listen to them. Don't just talk at their face all the time. Find that common ground and explore what veganism does as a benefit to that thing that they care about.
Yeah, I have a few different things. Well, I think for me personally, as an undercover investigator, I think I maybe don't get as much flack as maybe the normal person would for their veganism. Once I tell people, like, yeah, I was an undercover investigator, I worked in slaughterhouses, I've seen pigs being hit in the head with paddles and electrocuted in the face and stuff like that. A lot of people are much less willing then to fight me on certain points. But that's just me. But also, as an investigator, I've had plenty of practice, I think, dealing with people who are not veg-friendly, right? I've always really tried to keep a level head with them. For me, I think of it as sort of like a chess match when I talk to people, like a chess match in the park, right? Like, I want to present these arguments, right? I want to, win this debate as much as you can win a debate with someone who's not totally into what you're saying. But I want to present my arguments because they're strong arguments, right? If you keep it with just like the research, with the facts, that's not a fight that we lose, honestly. I mean, everything is on our side. Reality, that all points to veganism being the best thing. So, I just want to keep people talking to me, right? I don't want them to, flip the proverbial chessboard and storm out or anything like that. And I don't want them making that excuse later that, oh, this vegan was mean to me or whatever. He was rude, so now I'm gonna eat more meat just to spite him or something like that. So I try and, really just keep my calm with people. Another thing I think that helps, that I've talked about with the other members of the organization, is just being really helpful towards people, if they express any sort of interest at all, pointing them through to different resources, or if there's someone personally, saying like, oh yeah, I know a ton of stuff that you can cook, I can help you out, I can email you some stuff, things like that. I think those are very helpful, and I think it sort of gets by a lot of the arguments that people put forth.
By the way, speaking of undercover investigations, very quickly, the next undercover investigator who exposes the horrific abuse of animals to the world could be you. And that includes you guys watching Jane Unchained. Undercover investigators are the people who make so much of the public education that happens and the spread of veganism that is happening possible. And if you or anyone if you think you or someone else might be the right person to go in there and be the catalyst for this remarkable change, you should contact an organization like Mercy for Animals. You can speak with me, or Compassion Over Killing. And you might just be a catalyst for changing the world even more than you could have imagined.
So I want to hop in here because for a long time I didn't be an activist because I was afraid of being an undercover investigator. It's not the kind of work that personally I could ever do. I'd never be able to pick myself up off the floor from tears. Not everyone can do that kind of work. Those who can literally do change the world, and so I thank you both for doing that kind of work. But I want to say that if that kind of work is not for you, very much to Asher's point, you are very much an activist. If you cook for your friends something great and super delicious that's vegan, you're an activist. You post it on social media, you're an activist. You can make a difference just by being you every day in what you do, as long as you use your voice. I'll also say something else that's really very positive, is that you watch TV and you say like, okay, every Democrat hates every Republican hates every Democrat. But actually, here's one area where we do come together, and it's a very happy message. Most Republicans and most Democrats feel the same about animals. Most people, when given the choice, use their vote to help animals. That's a stat according to Josh Bulk from the Humane Society. So it is actually, I think, a common point that regardless of your politics, most people don't want to see cruelty to animals. And I don't think we're as far off as we seem in these conversations. Okay, so we've been given the light here to kind of wrap up. I do want to talk to the panel. Just again, I'm going to kind of go down the line talking with Ben. What are your predictions for the future, and how long will it be till we get there?
Wow.
Big question.
I'm very optimistic. I've been optimistic for 10 years, since I've been vegan. I speak to so many people who are pessimistic because it is a horrible stat that we kill 60 billion animals every year for food. So, you know, once you can get past that and see the amazing food options you have here, it's no longer lentils and chickpeas, it's Beyond Burgers and fromage on Sunset Boulevard, you know. I'm really optimistic that plant-based food technology in Silicon Valley is going to take off and really revolutionize the way that the mass market food consumption happens. So I'm optimistic. I think we're probably about 5 years away from commercially produced in vitro meats, which will be exciting. So yeah, I think within my lifetime, certainly, I expect most people to be vegan.
Rockstar.
I agree. I like Salish Rao's idea that we're going to have a vegan world by 2026. I can see in my mind's eye the utter collapse of animal agriculture. It will be replaced with plant-based foods and clean meat, and the cultural paradigms will shift. The entire level of human consciousness is going to raise. All of this is happening, and it's because of people like you that are willing to welcome a new idea that goes against your own culture and see beyond yourself. So this is all happening because of everybody here today that's doing something, everybody that's watching this that is an activist in their own way. It's happening. It's already been in motion for a few decades now, but it's coming to this big climactic moment where these animal ag industries are literally going to collapse. And we've been warning them for a long time now, so they can't say we didn't try to help them shift their industries. We don't want to see people out of work. We just want people to be working where it doesn't involve the exploitation, abuse, and murder of another sentient being. So I'm very optimistic as well. I have a very positive view of what's going to happen in our future.
And I'm the third person who will be optimistic. You know, it's easy when we're looking just at our own lives and the people immediately around us to not see as swift of a change as we would want. But if you zoom out and look at how our society and now the world is changing in terms of people's attitudes of taking members of other species, all of the other animals with whom we share this planet, seriously, the change is remarkably rapid. And if we look at historical trends of things that we look back on and say, how did people support that and how did these things go on, we can see things that went on for millennia unchallenged, and then in a relatively short period of time turned around. And humankind has been exploiting and abusing non-human animals for a remarkable period of time. And from a historical perspective, the change that's happening right now, I mean, look around you right here at this event. This is a change that is remarkably swift. And we should remember that every single one of us, by doing, as we've all discussed, these small things, when posting what we eat on Instagram, or talking in a positive way to someone who asks you a question, all of these things are collectively what is changing the world. We can see it happening, and every one of us can be part of making sure that it continues to happen.
And I'd just like to shout out all the plant-based kids who are here today. This is your planet, this is your food system, and you're the ones who are going to bring us where we need to go. So thank you.
We're definitely moving forward. I mean, we're getting food placed in restaurants all over the place. There's new ballot initiatives coming up. Again, Prop 12, please vote for it. But there are definitely things that we have to look out for. And there's a lot of pushback by the industry. You see a lot of campaigns put forth by them, whether it's like February dairy, stuff like that, whether they're trying to get laws passed that say we can't call almond milk, stuff like that, or for me as an investigator, whether it's ag-gag laws where they're trying to make these undercover investigations illegal in certain states. But those are things that we have to watch out for, to be vigilant of, make sure that we fight against. But honestly, I think we're doing a really good job. I mean, in the past few years, there's been some ag-gag laws repealed, so we can go into these places again, we can go into these states and do undercover investigations and show the truth to people who normally would only get the industry's version of things, right? And this sort of whitewashed version of how standard practices are in their facilities. So we're definitely doing good. I think we're only going to get better, but we just need to, watch out for pushback from people.
I'll say one thing, because Scott reminded me when he talked about the almond milk, plant-based milk stuff. The plant-based meats, the cattle ranchers are trying to push back on using the word meat, as some of you may know, and they want it used exclusively for something that comes from a hooved animal, so you can't call your Beyond Burger meat. Now, interestingly, the North American Meat Institute, which is funded by meat companies like Tyson and Cargill, didn't object to have remained silent on this issue. They're not calling for the protectionism of meat, and that's because they're so heavily invested in plant-based meat, because they know that that is the future. So these predominantly animal slaughtering businesses are now looking 50 years ahead, and they're almost as vegan as Beyond Meat or other vegan companies. So I thought that was really interesting, that their silence on the issue, because they know that veganism is the future and they want to be around for that.
Tyson, I think, actually changed its name from a meat company to a protein company. And I think that is really where the shift is going. I'll just add to that and say that change is what we make happen. So we have to keep our eye on the prize. We're getting there. We've made swift progress. We're not there yet. And so we have to make sure that everybody stays on message, that we don't sort of veer off course and suddenly everyone's saying, oh, organic, it's just as good as being vegan. Not so, people, not so. So we just need to keep the force, keep everybody out there. We all do this together. So thank you all for caring. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for listening. Change, we make it happen. I want to say thank you to Scott David, Asher Brown, Mark Devries, Amy Jean Davis, Ben Williamson, and I'm Elysabeth Alfano. You guys, we're going to be at the meet and greet table, so you can ask us more questions there. Thanks, Jen Unchained. We're out, everybody.